Once upon a time, not too long ago, well, quite a while ago, in the village of Seattle, a child was born. They named him Daniel Jackson Evans. And God, knower of all things, looked down upon this child and saw in him the promise of the future. And God spoke.
Daniel, you are a child of destiny. You are meant to be a leader of the people, to do great things that will make your name known throughout the land. And because you are this chosen one, I will keep special watch over you, and will maketh the sun to shine upon you, and you will be honored when you act in the best interests of the people. But Daniel, you must always be true. And when you are not true, I will make known my displeasure in a sign from heaven. Sleep now, and grow strong so that you may go forth and fulfill your destiny.
Little Daniel Jackson Evans ate and slept and played and grew like other children. But he was obviously a child who was going someplace. Then the day came when the spark of the man he was to become shone through. As an older child, Daniel Jackson Evans played games just like other children. Well, almost like other children. He was always playing like he was the governor. He just loved to play like he was the governor. He would make up budgets, appoint secretaries, and hold news conferences. And to add realism, he would make promises.
I will not raise attention. Ta-da!
Daniel, remember what I said.
Daniel remembered, and he led an exemplary life as he grew toward manhood, becoming first an Eagle Scout and later joining the Navy, where it wasn't long before his talents were recognized.
Do that again, son. Congratulations. You're now aide to Admiral Joy.
Why, thank you, Captain Prawl. I just hope I can do something for you when I get to be governor.
You governor? You got about as much chance of ever becoming governor as your roommate Zumwalt has of being an admiral.
But although he became an engineer, politics was to be his destiny. And in only a few short years, he moved into the job he had long dreamed of. Daniel Jackson Evans was elected governor of the state of Washington, and he took his message to the legislature.
And I present to you today a budget that is balanced.
And joy reigned throughout the land and in the home of his parents.
Dad,
Yes, Mother?
our son Dan has just been elected governor.
I was hoping he'd get a steady job.
And the new governor and his bride, Nancy, moved into their new home.
But it leaks, Dan.
I know it leaks, Nancy. Don't you think I know water when I see it? How do you think I got to be a Navy officer?
But it's leaking through the ceiling, Dan.
I know it's leaking through the ceiling. Don't you think I know a ceiling when I see one? How do you think I got to be an engineer?
But it's soaking all the people, Dan.
I know it's soaking all the people, Nancy. Don't you think I know all about soaking the people? How do you think I got to be governor?
And he did know about soaking the people. And 4 years later, he was elected to a second term. And an ever-watchful God heard his protege say,
I present to you today a budget that is balanced.
and joy reigned throughout the land and in the home of his parents.
Dad, our son, the governor, is coming home for the weekend.
Hide the silver.
In his second term, Governor Evans felt he had a mission to perform, and he went out unto the people and delivered unto them a message.
And this tax reform package will in no way increase your taxes.
But while Daniel did not always hear the thunder, the people did, and they turned down that tax package. And he had problems at home, too, where Nancy and their 3 sons awaited him.
It's good to have you home again, Dan. Did you have a nice trip?
I'll just have a brief statement to make, and then I'll be open to your questions.
I know you're busy, Dan, but it's time we sat down and did some serious thinking about the boy's future.
I have been doing some serious thinking about the boys, Nancy. Why, didn't I introduce an executive request bill establishing an inheritance line for the governorship?
But what if they don't want to go into politics, Dan? People do other things, you know.
Of course, I know that. I haven't always been governor. Wasn't I a
An engineer, Dan?
engineer? Of course. I knew it would come to me. Wasn't I an engineer before I became governor? But you're right, and I have been thinking. I think Bruce is doing quite well in the merchandising field. He sells more cans of sugared nuts in the legislative building than any other person. Although I do resent the inference of some that Will Bachhoffner is along with him for some other reason than just to carry the cans.
And Mark?
Mark has the cloakroom concession here at the mansion. We could give a few more parties and get some more people going through here if you like. Throw a few more teas for the Historical Society. Those old ladies bundle up a lot.
And Danny Jr.?
Ah, yes, Danny Jr. I've had thoughts of Danny Jr. following in my footsteps. Why, every time I look over there at that desk and see my old
Slide rule, Dan.
slide rule, of course. Why, every time I see that slide rule, I think of Danny Jr. following my footsteps.
But he needs a job now, Dan.
Jobs now. By George, Nancy, I think you've got it. That's what Jobs Now is all about. It'll provide employment in the public sector and on Indian reservations. People are always complaining they don't know how many state employees there are. Let's count them. Better still, let's let Danny Jr. count them. He can start in my office.
Well, that ought to keep him busy through high school. What about when he reaches the college years?
Why, then he can go count in Slade's office.
Time passed and the day came when Dan Evans made history. He was elected to a third consecutive term, and joy reigned throughout the land and in the home of his parents.
Dad,
Yes, Mother?
our son, the governor, has been elected to a third term.
That really moves me, Mother.
Moves you, Dad?
To Canada.
In the mansion, the governor prepared for his historic inauguration.
You better hurry, Dan. It's almost time for you to go over to the House chambers for your inaugural speech. You mustn't be late. You go on TV promptly at 7.
Yeah, you think anyone will notice?
Well, if they didn't notice the false eyelashes, why should they notice the hair?
Well, it really was nice of Slade to lend them to me.
And the governor gave his message to the legislature.
And I present to you today a budget that is balanced. I've never done anything in my life that wasn't for the good of the people of the state of Washington. I would rather cross the political aisle than to cross the people. I am firm but flexible. And the only reason I want a Department of Transportation is so that we can be more responsive to the needs of the people of this state.
In his new term, there were other problems to face.
Hello, Stu. This is Dan. Evans. Yes, right. I've got your request in front of me for the agriculture director job. I just wanted to clear up a few things with you first. I noticed that when you were in the legislature, you never bought any cans of sugared nuts from any little boys who just happened to be wandering around. Care to explain that, Stu? Oh, on a diet, eh? Well, I guess I can understand that. But I've also noticed that any time you come to the mansion anymore, you don't wear a raincoat. Pinching pennies? Oh, he did? Is that right? Well, I'm sorry about that, Stu. London fog, eh? Well, I'm sure Mark didn't intend to give it to the wrong person. Well, keep your eyes peeled around the Capitol, and maybe you'll spot it. Or better still, you might even sniff it out instead, considering it was worn by a cattleman. Ha Stu, that was a joke? Right. Now, that's better, that's better. Here's another one. You're the new agriculture director, and I don't want you to tell anybody about it until I announce it, okay?
And other problems.
Zumwalt, yow!
And so life goes on, and Governor Dan Evans goes on, and on, and on, and on, and on. And where is it all to lead?
I have no desire at all to be president.
Oh, Daniel.
Of course I don't want to be president. I'm aiming for a higher job.